Hey guys, Marsingin here, bringing you another Dragon Ball Z Dokkan battle video, and so today we are going to have a compilation here of the LR Vegeta and Trunks team taking on and defeating the three major Red Zone bosses, Omega Shenron, Broly and the Metal Cooler Core, all with no items. So I tried doing one of these in the past with the Wicked Bloodline stages. I can't even remember what team it was with now, but I asked you guys in that video, because I hadn't put one of them together before, how you guys wanted to see those kind of videos presented in the future. Basically just getting some feedback from you guys, and the main thing that people said was that they wanted commentary all the way through, which I can agree with. Like, we've talked in the past, especially on streams and stuff, that I'm not a huge fan of Dokkan content without commentary. So people didn't want just an intro to the fight and then nothing else. So we will be doing commentary for the actual 3 runs. Obviously they are sped up because each one took anywhere between 10 and 15 minutes. So they are running in double speed. And then I finally decided on the format that I wanted to present these in, because as I'm sure you all know, Truth does these compilations where he does all of the stages of one particular Red Zone. And obviously makes it into multiple videos, but it'll be like all the movie boss stages, all the GT stages, etc, etc. I think when it comes down to showing off these runs or showing off the teams, it's the main boss of the Red Zone that we really care about, right? Like, if you can beat Broly with no items with a team, you can probably beat, you know, Janemba, Bojack. Obviously you can still get bad RNG, with the wrong unit can take a super, you can still lose. But when it comes to what I think would be the best presentation of the unit, what would make the most entertaining video, and just to kind of show off that this team is able to dominate, I feel like showing these 3 main bosses is probably going to be the best way to do it. So again, I'm asking you guys for your feedback. Let me know what you think down below in the comment section, but this is probably what I'm going to do going forward now for when we get these big releases of new units and their teams. I will obviously do my initial showcases like I do, take them up against Cell Max, maybe take them up against 1 or 2 of these Red Zone bosses, but where I don't worry about using items, either because I want to help, you know, support the rest of the team, or I just want to get through to the end, get the W, maybe see some different scenarios of like that unit taking a super or not, maybe potentially making suboptimal plays just to kind of see how well units will tank and things like that. And then once we've done all of that, we will put together a compilation like this of the team beating all 3 of the major Red Zone bosses. But we won't really worry too much about the other stages. So obviously starting off with Omega Shenron, he is the one that most people consider to be the easiest one. I say most people, all people should consider him to be the easiest one. The thing that is really the big trick for when you're putting your team together is the fact that obviously the first and second stage are int, but the middle stage is STR, so you can't just build a full physical team, because even some of the top tier physical units in the game will take a lot of damage from him, especially if he super attacks. So you do have to be smart with the team building. It's one of the main reasons why I bought AGL Kid Gohan on the team, because he has type advantage in this phase, as well as the fact that he's providing defensive support, and he has that active skill that heals, as well as giving a defensive buff to the rest of the allies. So we were able to use that there on the previous turn, because unfortunately, out of all of the attack placements possible, Future Gohan was the one that took the super attack. And whilst I have warmed to Future Gohan's performance on this team specifically, because he really does need to be run with a Trunks in order for him to be good. Of course, he builds up damage reduction over time, so very early on in the event is when he's likely to get caught out, and of course that's when we got hit with a super attack from the STR Sin. So Future Gohan took, what was it, over like 500k. Fortunately this team has a lot of HP, and then we were able to follow that up on the next turn with the active skill from Gohan to give us a little bit of a heal, and then obviously give everybody a nice defensive buff, put us back on the right track. We're able to grab a decent amount of same type orbs and then top up our HP, you know, a little bit more. So we are running the 3-year LR on the team. They are a unit that has built-in dodge, so they can be useful. They raise defense on supers, so they can still be reasonably good defensively against Sin. Would be bad for them to take a super attack, of course, but then they're also supporting the team with the potential for that free heal if we get to turn 6 and beyond and are below 50% HP, then obviously they will fuse into Gogeta and give us the full heal. And then we are good to go. So unfortunately here we see an example of people's sort of #1 criticism of the LR Super Saiyan 4s, and that is that by having shocking speed and not prepared for battle, they don't link super well with a lot of other top tier units on the teams that you want to run them on, because the LR Super Saiyan 4s do get the 200% leader skill from Vegeta and Trunks because they're on Battle of Fate, so they can work very nicely on this team. But unless you are bringing a specific partner, because on this team, they're kind of just there, right? To do the extra damage, we have the active skill. Obviously, the LR Super Saiyan 4 is very good against Omega, but they can sometimes feel a little bit out of place, especially when it comes to key availability on the turn, right? They get a lot of extra key from picking up same type orbs, but, you know, it's still very easy to get screwed over by the orb field and not have a lot of type orbs to pick up. And then you get stuck in a situation where they're obviously not going to look as good as they would, you know, if they had a decent link partner and a good starting amount of key for the turn. So double super from the LR fusions here mean we do quite a nice bit of damage. And then Super Saiyan 3 Goku, didn't really talk about him much up until this end part, but he's able to finish off the run in style, getting the additional super attacks, getting the crits. So he did all 4 attacks on this turn, 3 of them were supers. And then to really drive it home, the last 2 were crits, and he's able to finish off Omega. So I do still like that Super Saiyan 3 Goku, but probably would only use him against Omega for the type advantage. He definitely can get taken out by Sin, so you've got to be very careful. But then we move on to Broly. So Broly, when it comes to doing no item runs, I still feel like Broly is probably the most frustrating. I don't know if I necessarily want to say the most difficult, but I guess they could essentially be considered the same thing. And the main reason for that is the AoE phase. I'm sure most of you knew exactly what I was going to say. Even some of the top tier teams, if you get the worst possible rotation and he super attacks in slot 1, you can still die without an item active. So even if you have like a scouter effect in play and you know he's going to super in slot 1, if you are specifically going for a no item run, then there's nothing you can do about it, right? You can't just be like, oh, well, there's a super in slot 1, guess I'm popping a Whis. Obviously, you can't do that if you're trying to do a no item run. So I feel like many of my no item attempts, even with teams that sometimes they feel like when you do get the no item run, it was actually super easy. Sometimes those runs just get immediately thrown in the bin because Broly will AoE super in slot 1. And of course, with the red zone having that much loved 3 attempts per day only, you can literally just have... I've had attempts before with teams. It was easier with the Vegeta and Trunks one overall, I'm not going to lie. But I've had attempts in the past with teams where all 3 of my attempts for the day have essentially just been he AoE supered in slot 1 and I died. Because remember, on some of these, even on some of the best teams in the game, there's a lot of units that really want to super attack first in order to get the majority of their defense. And so if he super attacks you in slot 1, then obviously they don't get the chance to do that. So it's very easy for those units to get taken out. So one of the reasons why I brought Tech Gohan on this team build is obviously with his stacking defense and the fact that he guards. I was thinking he would be another unit that has the higher potential to survive the AoE turn from Broly. Because obviously we have that guard, he's been stacking his defense. God Goku obviously can survive no item turn against the AoE attack. Carnival Goku is a unit, obviously he needs to get hit first to get that big extra defensive buff. So he's another unit that can get caught out by AoE Broly, because obviously if he super attacks in slot 1, that's the first attack of the turn that Carnival Goku is taking. So if his guard is up, then obviously he's not necessarily going to get one shot, but he is still potentially going to take quite a bit of damage. And then we have units like the LR Gods, even transformed with the ridiculous amount of defense that they get after all of their super attacks. They can't dodge, so if the super's in slot 1, again, another situation where they're not going to be looking particularly great. So I decide to put Carnival Goku in slot 1 here because I want to guarantee getting an extra stack with him before we get to the later phases, because obviously both him and Vegeta and Trunks infinitely stack defense on their 18 key super. But I was a bit worried that Vegeta and Trunks might like triple super, triple crit and just kill Broly before we got the chance to actually do the 18 key super with Carnival Goku. Unfortunately, in slot 2, they didn't do either of those things. They did 2 additional normals and didn't crit. But I guess it works out okay, right? Because it gave the gods the opportunity to get a double super, which obviously gives them 2 extra stacks. So decent for them. And here we are at the AoE Broly phase. I would say for this team, this is probably the best, if not the second best rotation for potentially surviving the AoE. So I put Gohan in slot 2 because obviously more of a chance for him to super attack before Broly does. And then, of course, he just goes ahead and AoEs in slot 1 anyway. So 160 odd for Vegeta and Trunks, 170 odd for Gohan, and then obviously God Goku tanking like a champ in the final slot there. But as you can see, we took a pretty significant amount of damage. And if Gohan had been replaced on the turn by like the LR Gods, Tech Gogeta, like we'd probably be dead now. So you guys can kind of see a perfect example of what I'm saying with the AoE phase for Broly. Now, fortunately for this run, Carnival Goku, yet again, showing off how great he is. There's a reason why he's on like pretty much every build that I run for this team. Not only is he a fantastic unit in general in terms of offense and defense, but his revival is definitely very easy to get compared to some of the other revival units, and on this turn in particular it definitely comes in clutch, right? We eat the AoE super in the first turn of the STR phase. We start this turn below the HP threshold, which means that he has his guard active, sorry, not guard, his revival active. He doesn't have guard when the revival is not active, and then he's able to get off another 18 key super, get an extra stack. And then, unfortunately for the Tech LR Gogeta, he super attacks in slot 3. And as you can see, without that guard up, Carnival Goku gets taken out by the super. It probably would have done more damage to the Tech Gogeta in slot 3 anyway. But fortunately, Goku getting taken out on the turn where we do actually have the revival skill up. So we revive, and then here we are. Transform with the gods, fire off their active skill. Obviously the hope was to finish him off, but as you can see, he just about manages to survive. And so in this situation, we essentially have to just hope and pray that he doesn't super attack in slot 1, which he doesn't, and then that opens the path for us to finish him off. But again, it's a perfect example of what I was talking about, because if he did AoE as one of those first 2 attacks in slot 1, then we'd be dead. Which, after how well the run has gone up until this point, all things considered, would be very unfortunate for it to have ended there. So, anyway, we move into the final phase. This is where, honestly, the event actually just becomes a lot easier. Even though he can double super in the AGL phase, our team is obviously very tech heavy. And then there's Vegeta and Trunks that have been building up their defense and guard. So even against the slot 1 super, they only take 200k. Remember, Broly's super attack does over 1 million damage before you factor in your unit's defense and all of their things like guard damage reduction and all that kind of stuff. So very good tanking from Vegeta and Trunks, especially considering it was in slot 1 and their defense would have been much higher after they get the opportunity to attack. So very solid from them. And then God Goku in slot 3 kind of protects us from him super attacking again at the end. Fortunately, he does not, and we are able to fuse with the Tech Gogeta, see where the super attack is going to be for this turn. Funnily enough, he is only super attacking once, and it is at the end of the turn. So I go ahead and transform Tech Gohan here. I'm not sure in total, because I know he gets extra defense in his passive when he's transformed. So I don't know if his defense would have been better untransformed after supering, because obviously he stops raising defense, well, he stops stacking defense on his super attack once he transforms. But the main reason why I wanted to transform him is pretty much just to do damage, right? If there was any possibility that we could take him out in this turn, then I wanted to go for it. Although it probably, in retrospect, watching this back to record the commentary, I think even if like Gogeta and Gohan had like double supered with crits, we probably wouldn't have finished off Broly this turn anyway. But I put Gohan in the final slot because it should be pretty obvious to most people if you've used the 2 units. Gohan was much more likely to survive the super attack than Tech Gogeta. In fact, I'm pretty sure Tech Gogeta just does absolutely die to that super if we had left him in slot 3. So Gohan, yet again, still proving that he is still very useful despite it being this long after his release. And then this is obviously going to be the final turn. We managed to get enough ki for the LR gods to get their guaranteed additional super. And then, yeah, he's attacking in the end again, which is pretty convenient timing for us. Obviously, if he supered Vegeta and Trunks, we know they're going to survive anyway. But yeah, 2 turns in a row with him supering right at the end of the turn is definitely a lucky break. But obviously this rotation, more than able to handle wherever he was going to super attack. And then the gods getting that ki so they get that guaranteed additional super. The gods still put out a crazy amount of damage, so even though they only get the 170 lead from Vegeta and Trunks, I do still like using them on the team. Even against Broly where they can't dodge, I think they can still be very, very useful. So that's Broly done, and we move on to the final one here, the Metal Cooler Core. This one, the debate is probably still going, I don't know, between who everyone considers the hardest of the Red Zone bosses to be, between Broly and the Metal Cooler Core, and I think both of them have very credible arguments for which one is the hardest. So Broly, we obviously already talked about the AoE super attacks, the fact that that can just end your run like slot 1 with you essentially having no control. Now obviously that is only for no item attempts, that can be easily mitigated with items. But when it comes to the core, phase 1 against the Metal Cooler army, obviously you can't kill them, so you have to fight them for 3 turns. There's no like, saving a weak unit in slot 3 by killing the enemy before he attacks them, because you literally can't do that in this event. Not only can you not kill them, but they can double super, which means it's already bad enough for some teams, like where you don't have super good tanks. It's already bad enough if you're eating a super in slot 1. That has the potential to deal quite a lot of damage, even to reasonably good defensive units. But then there's the possibility that he could super attack you again, which, that's one of the hardest things about the AGL Broly phase, the fact that he can double super. The Metal Cooler army can do that, and it's literally the first phase of the fight that lasts for 3 turns. So if you get the worst possible RNG, they could double super you 3 turns in a row, which that even on of itself could be the end of a no item attempt, right? Because you don't have any way to top up your HP or defense in between unless you are running certain units with like healing active skills and stuff like that, right? So Metal Cooler army can already be quite a tricky one with the multiple supers and not being able to finish them off early. And then once you actually get to the Metal Cooler Core, not only does he have an incredibly hard hitting super attack, I know it's relative to Broly's one, I'd have to double check the exact numbers, but the problem with the Metal Cooler Core is when he super attacks, he raises his own attack. So if he supers you like right at the beginning of the turn, all of his attacks for the rest of the turn are more powerful. And that can actually make the difference between certain units tanking him for like, double digits or like 10k to taking like 50 or 60k if he is super attacked earlier in the turn. So that is something you always have to be very careful about. That's why for this particular run, I've brought in a couple of units like STR Ultimate Gohan, the STR Namek Goku, just to have those extra units that have type advantage. Obviously Ultimate Gohan buffs all his allies defensively, has the guard chance, but the final phase is physical, so obviously he's in a bit of a better spot. But you're going to see a perfect example of what I was talking about with the core here. So he super attacks Vegeta and Trunks, and then STR Gohan gets his super attack off, and then gets hit for 77k with his guard activated. Now obviously he doesn't have All in the Family active, which is a really powerful defensive link for him. But with his guard post super attack, him still taking 70k from a physical enemy is pretty crazy. So anyway, I do unfortunately make a misplay, I think, here, because I use Vegeta and Trunks' active skill, and then because of the orb placement, I decide to grab some same type orbs to get some healing, and then I use Namek Goku's Rage mode. Now I realised as I did it that I potentially misplayed there, because Vegeta and Trunks' active skill, obviously it does damage to the enemy, but then it buffs all allies' defense and gives Vegeta and Trunks guaranteed crits for the rest of the turn. So obviously, ideally, you want to use Goku's Rage mode first, and then use Vegeta and Trunks' active skill. Although, saying that, I am noticing, of course, because I recorded this run before doing the commentary, the Giant Ape or Rage modes don't increase the turn counter. So I think, in terms of Vegeta and Trunks' active skill, I think this does actually count as the same turn. So somebody can let me know down below. Obviously, one way we could tell is if they get crits on all of their attacks, then that obviously could mean, yeah, they did. So that could mean that their active skill effect is in play. But of course, you have to remember that Vegeta and Trunks build up crit chance anyway. So there is obviously also the possibility that they just happen to get crits on all of those attacks. But now that I'm thinking about it, with the fact that it freezes the turn counter, I think we actually do still have their effect in play. So that is actually very good and very useful. So, and then once again, Carnival Goku proving his usefulness here, has his revival skill up on the turn, which means I think he does get killed. Because if he, he takes a normal for double-digit damage after he gets his defense boost, but then takes 1.4 million from the super attack. So, obviously, the Metal Cooler Core super attack is no joke, but Carnival Goku, yet again, coming in clutch with the revival, which obviously now means he has permanent guard. So, yeah, I can't rate this unit highly enough. Like, he's super, super good. A lot of people have been arguing lately over who is better, him or the Vegeta and Trunks. But the one thing about Carnival Goku is his leader skill is, like, awful, right? Just powerful comeback is not a great category. You can build a team that can beat events, don't get me wrong, but it's not the best team for sure. Whereas he's on Vegeta and Trunks' team, he links up really well with them. He doesn't get the 200% leader skill, but he's still a very powerful unit even under a 170 lead. So I think the two of them together on the same team is just an ultimate combo, and you've seen during this compilation, 2 of these runs were essentially helped out or saved by Carnival Goku getting his revival. So unfortunately, Vegeta and Trunks were sealed, so no super attack for them. The key issues with Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta coming into play again. Couldn't get the 18 key super for him. Fortunately though, he does triple super, and obviously the first one was the Dokkan attack, so we're going to get a nice heal back to full at the start of next turn. Him triple supering means he can tank the core's normal attacks for double digit damage. And then we are into the last turn here. So Carnival Goku active skill. Unfortunately no crit, because obviously once he's revived he has a built-in chance to crit. So I always like to save his active skill until after the revival to try and get that extra crit chance. But unfortunately we didn't get it come in this turn. And we are going to be finishing him off here. The core trying desperately to claw back the run here by hitting the super attack on Vegeta and Trunks. But it's not going to be enough, and STR Namek Goku gets to finish the run. So there you go. That is the Metal Cooler Core and also Broly and Omega all beaten with no items by the Vegeta and Trunks team. Even if you don't think Vegeta and Trunks are number 1, they are a top tier unit. Their team is definitely one of the best teams in the game. With how flexible the team building is because of how big of a category Bond of Parent and Child is, you can literally just make a team for any boss by having that wealth of units available that are each going to have different advantages over the different red zone bosses, and then Vegeta and Trunks just guard and just tank everything in slot 1. So very, very powerful team. So let me know what you guys think down below. Hopefully you guys got lucky if you did summon, but absolute beast of a team. And let me know your thoughts on the format for these videos going forward. So that is going to be it for the video, guys. This has been the Masked Ningen. Smash that like button, subscribe to the channel if you are new. Check out the links down below for the Discord and the merch store, and I will see you all again soon. Have a good one.